The satellite myth. When you send a message halfway across the world, where do you think it goes? Most of us have been taught to look up. We imagine our data beaming into space, bouncing off a satellite, and returning to Earth in a fraction of a second. It feels modern. It feels wireless. But the reality is much more grounded and much wetter. If every satellite in orbit suddenly vanished, the global economy would barely blink. Your Netflix wouldn't buffer, and your bank wouldn't lose your balance. That's because 99% of all international data doesn't travel through the air. It travels through thousands of miles of glass fibers sitting on the dark, freezing floor of the ocean. These cables are the literal nervous system of our planet. They are the reason you can watch this video. But they are also the most vulnerable and politically contested infrastructure on Earth. The Victorian nervous system. To understand why we rely on these cables, we have to realize that this isn't new technology. In 1858, Queen Victoria sent a telegram to U.S. President James Buchanan. It was the first transatlantic message. Before that, communication moved at the speed of a ship, about 10 days. Suddenly, it took 17 hours. The British Empire realized early on that controlling the cables meant controlling the world. They built the All-Red Line, a network that connected London to every corner of their empire without ever touching foreign soil. During World War I, within hours of the conflict starting, British ships used giant hooks to pull up and sever Germany's undersea cables. In an instant, Germany was digitally isolated. The lesson was clear: geography is destiny, but the cables are the gatekeepers. The physics of the deep. So, what does this gatekeeper actually look like? You'd expect it to be a massive, reinforced pipe. But in the deep ocean, where the water is calm, a cable is no thicker than a garden hose. At its core are tiny strands of glass, each about the width of a human hair. These carry pulses of laser light. If you could see inside, it would be a blinding race of photons moving at nearly the speed of light. However, as these cables approach the shore, they have to become armor-plated. Because the greatest enemy of the internet isn't a spy or a submarine, it's a fishing boat. 70% of all cable breaks are caused by anchors and trawlers. In 2022, a volcanic eruption near Tonga snapped its only cable, proving that a whole nation can be deleted from the map by a single geological event. The new colonizers. For decades, these cables were owned by consortia, groups of national phone companies like AT&T or France Telecom. They shared the cost because no one company could afford to wire the world. But in the last 10 years, the players have changed. Today, the companies building the most cables are Google, Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft. They have moved from being tenants to landlords. When Google builds a cable like Grasshopper, connecting New York to London and Spain, they aren't just looking for speed. They are looking for autonomy. By owning the physical pipe, they bypass the regulations and costs of traditional telecom companies. We are entering an era where the private infrastructure of 4 or 5 American companies dictates the connectivity of entire continents. The geopolitical chessboard. This brings us to the most dangerous part of the story, geopolitics. There are certain points on Earth where the internet is dangerously squeezed. The most famous is the Suez Canal. Almost all data flowing between Europe and Asia passes through a narrow strip of Egyptian land. Egypt knows this. They charge massive transit fees for every cable that crosses their territory. If Egypt were to go offline, or if a conflict erupted in the Red Sea, the digital link between East and West would be severed instantly. Then there is the US-China tech war. The US government has recently blocked several cables that would have connected Los Angeles directly to Hong Kong. The fear? Intelligence. If a cable lands on your soil, you can tap it. By controlling the landing stations, a government can monitor every packet of data that enters or leaves their country.
We like to think of the internet as a borderless, ethereal cloud. We use terms like wireless and virtual, but the internet is a physical, fragile, and deeply political object. It is tied to the mud of the ocean floor and the stability of the nations where those cables wash ashore. The next time you click a link, remember that your data is diving 2 miles deep, racing through a hair-thin strand of glass, and passing through a landing station in a country you've never visited. The cloud isn't in the sky, it's under the sea, and the battle for who controls it is only just beginning.